It was a quiet morning in Kensington Palace. The sun was rising, shining soft golden light through the large windows. Birds chirped in the gardens outside. Inside, everything looked peaceful, but Prince William was not calm. He stood near the window, walking back and forth, his hands shaking slightly. He had already fixed his tie 3 times, but it still didn't feel right. Kate stood nearby, watching him carefully. They had been married for many years, and she knew when something was wrong. Today, her husband looked more nervous than she had ever seen him. He didn't speak much, but his silence said everything. Kate walked closer and touched his arm gently. "The children will be fine," she said softly. But even she didn't fully believe her own words. Her heart was also beating fast. Something was coming, something that could change everything. 3 weeks earlier, a letter had arrived at the palace. It was not from a fan or a reporter. It was from a man named Thomas Whitmore. He said he had important information about William's family. At first, William thought it was another false story. As a royal, he often received strange letters from people who claimed to be related. Most were lies. But this letter felt different. Thomas didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for fame. He only wanted to share what he had discovered. In the letter, he wrote about things only someone close to Princess Diana could know. Personal things, secret things, things never written in books or told on the news. Kate read the letter carefully. She looked at William and said, "I think we should look into it, just in case." So they did. They hired Dr. Elaine Richardson, a kind woman in her 60s. She was one of the best family history researchers in the country. For over a month, she searched through old records, traveled to small towns, spoke with elderly people, and studied DNA reports. She worked hard because the story Thomas told was serious. Now, the time had come. Dr. Richardson stood in the hallway with a large envelope in her hand. Beside her stood Thomas Whitmore. He was a quiet man, around 70 years old, with silver hair and a calm face. He held a leather folder, worn and old. William and Kate stood together, hand in hand. They looked at the 2 people who might bring truth or pain. "Your Royal Highnesses," Dr. Richardson said softly. "Today we may discover something very personal about your family. Are you ready to hear it?" William nodded slowly. "We're ready," he said. The 4 of them walked down the long hallway to William's private study. The room was filled with warm light and memories. Pictures of Diana were everywhere, her smile frozen in time, her kindness still living in the room. Kate always felt peaceful here, but now her heart was heavy. As they entered, Thomas stood up. "Thank you for seeing me," he said with emotion. "I know this must feel strange." He sat down again, and William and Kate took seats across from him. Dr. Richardson laid several documents on the desk. Thomas opened his folder slowly. "This started when I was building a family tree for my wife, Margaret," he explained. "She died 2 years ago, and I wanted to make something for our grandchildren. She never spoke much about her past. All she said was that her mother worked for rich families in London." He pulled out an old paper. "This is Margaret's birth certificate," he said. "She was born in 1952. Her mother was listed as Sarah Whitmore, but there was something strange. The last name was written over another name, a name I could barely read. It was Spencer." Kate froze. William's face changed. He looked pale. "Spencer?" William asked slowly. "Yes." Dr. Richardson stepped forward. "We checked the records. Sarah Spencer was your grandfather's younger sister. That means she was Princess Diana's aunt. But she was erased from the family after a scandal in the 1950s. "What scandal?" Kate asked quietly. "At 17, Sarah became pregnant," Thomas said. The man wasn't from a noble family. The Spencers were ashamed. They sent her away to have the baby in secret. That baby was Margaret, my wife. William looked down. He didn't speak. Kate saw his hands tighten. So your wife was my mother's cousin? William said softly. Yes, Thomas replied. And she never knew. Dr. Richardson picked up another paper. Sarah was told never to return. She lived under a new name. She was completely removed from the family. Thomas opened his folder again. After Margaret died, I found this in her things. He pulled out a small letter. It was addressed to Princess Diana. It was never sent. William opened it carefully. The paper was old, but the writing was neat. He read aloud, "Dear Princess Diana, I hope you don't mind me writing. I believe we might be family. My mother once told me stories that I think lead back to you. I don't want anything only to know if it's true." William's voice broke. He stopped reading. Kate wiped a tear from her eye. She imagined Diana reading this letter if she had lived long enough. Would she have replied? Would she have welcomed the cousin she never knew she had? Thomas spoke again. Margaret always felt a strange connection to Diana. She even looked like her, but she never knew why. Kate leaned forward and looked at the photo Thomas handed over. A young woman smiled in the picture, blonde, kind, familiar. "She looks just like your mother," Kate whispered. William nodded. He didn't speak. His eyes were full. And in that quiet moment, they both understood this story wasn't over yet. The soft ticking of the clock in the study was the only sound. William sat still, holding the old letter in his hand. The paper felt fragile, but the words were powerful. It was the kind of letter that could change hearts and change history. Kate sat quietly beside him, her fingers wrapped gently around his. Across the room, Thomas Whitmore looked at the royal couple with sad eyes. "She wanted to send it," he said softly, but Margaret was afraid. She worried that if she reached out to someone as important as Diana, she might be rejected. William gave a small nod. "My mother wouldn't have rejected her," he said in a low voice. "She always had room in her heart." Kate looked at the photo again, the one of Margaret smiling in the garden. "She really did look like your mother," she said. "It's almost like they were reflections of each other." Dr. Richardson stepped forward. She had more documents now, more photos, and more pieces of the story. "There is more you need to know," she said gently. "Margaret wasn't an only child." William looked up quickly. "What do you mean?" Dr. Richardson placed 3 birth records on the table. Sarah Spencer, the young woman sent away by her family, gave birth to 3 children in total. Margaret, David, and Elizabeth. William blinked in surprise. Kate gasped. 3? They had only just learned about 1. "Margaret was born in 1952, Dr. Richardson continued. "David came 5 years later, in 1957. Elizabeth was the youngest, born in 1967. Thomas nodded slowly. "Margaret mentioned she had siblings, but she didn't know where they were. She told me once that they were all adopted by different families. It was something her mother never wanted to talk about." Kate placed a hand on her heart. She couldn't imagine being forced to give away her children, to have them grow up apart. "So they never met each other?" she asked. Dr. Richardson shook her head. "Not as far as we know. They lived separate lives in different parts of the world." She opened a file marked David. Inside was a picture of a man smiling with his arm around 2 children. "David moved to Australia," she said. "He became a school teacher and had 2 children. Sadly, he passed away in 2019. William looked at the photo quietly. "So ... I have cousins in Australia?" "Yes," Dr. Richardson replied. "Your mother had cousins she never met. And you have relatives who never knew they were connected to the royal family." She turned to the next file. Elizabeth is still alive. She's 58 years old and lives in Edinburgh. She worked as a nurse her whole life and never married. She has 2 grown children. Kate looked at the photo of Elizabeth. She was standing in a garden, just like Margaret had been. Her smile was calm, her eyes gentle, and there was something very familiar in the way she stood. "She looks like Diana, too," Kate whispered. William's voice was quiet but steady. "Does she know about all this?" Thomas nodded. "I contacted her 6 months ago. It took time to gain her trust. She was afraid, just like Margaret. But she finally agreed to speak." Dr. Richardson added, "She gave us something very special. A set of journals, old diaries, that her mother Sarah kept for many years." She placed a leather-bound journal on the table. William reached for it carefully. He opened it to the middle, and his eyes scanned the page. "She wrote about Christmas," he said softly, "about how the house smelled, the games they played, and the way her father smiled when he opened presents. These are the memories my mother never got to hear." Kate leaned in. The handwriting was neat, the words full of feeling. "It's like a window into the past," she said. Dr. Richardson said, "There are stories in those pages that no one else has ever told. Sarah may have been erased from the Spencer family, but she remembered everything." William's voice broke slightly. "All this time, there were people, real people, who were part of our family, and we didn't know." Thomas looked down at his hands. "I think Margaret would have loved to meet you. She always had questions. She always felt there was something missing." Kate turned to her husband. "And now we know. Now we have the truth." There was silence in the room again. Not the heavy kind, but something deeper, like the sound of 2 worlds finally touching. A royal family and a forgotten family, both shaped by love and secrets. William looked at the photo of Elizabeth again. "Does she want to meet us?" he asked. Thomas paused. "She's scared, but also curious. She said she would think about it." Kate gave a small smile. "Maybe we can visit her quietly. Not as royals, but as family." Dr. Richardson closed her folder and said, "This is your story now. You can choose how it continues." William stood and walked to the window. The morning sun had grown brighter, shining on the palace gardens. He closed his eyes for a moment. "I want to meet her," he said. "I want to know everything. For Margaret, for Elizabeth, and for my mother." Kate stood beside him and gently took his hand. "Then let's open the door," she said. And with that, the next chapter of their family story began. The next few days felt long. William could not stop thinking about Elizabeth. Her face in the photo, her connection to Diana, her quiet life in Edinburgh. It all stayed in his mind like a song he couldn't forget. Every time he walked past a picture of his mother, he wondered, what would she say if she knew? Kate was quiet too. She kept looking through the letters and journals from Sarah. Each page was full of memories, of feelings, of a life hidden away. For so many years, the more she read, the more real it all felt. This wasn't just history. It was family. One morning, William received a phone call. It was from Thomas. "She's ready," Thomas said. "Elizabeth wants to meet." William's heart jumped. "Are you sure?" "She's nervous," Thomas replied. "But she said something yesterday that I think you should hear. She said, if Diana was anything like I imagine, she would have wanted us to meet." That afternoon, William and Kate quietly prepared for a trip to Scotland. They didn't tell the media. They didn't want photographers or cameras. This was not a royal visit. This was personal. This was about truth. They took a private car and drove through the countryside. The further they went, the more peaceful everything felt. The hills rolled gently, the trees swayed in the wind, and small cottages stood along quiet roads. It felt like stepping into another world. Elizabeth lived in a small stone house on the edge of a village. The garden outside was full of flowers, roses, lily, and sunflowers, just like the ones Diana loved. A wooden gate stood at the front, and a small sign beside it read, "Welcome home." Kate took William's hand. "Are you ready?" she asked. He nodded, though his heart was beating fast. "Let's do it." They walked up the path and rang the doorbell. A few seconds later, the door opened. Elizabeth stood there. She wore a soft blue sweater and had silver in her hair. Her face was kind, her eyes a calm shade of blue. And in those eyes, William saw something familiar, something that made his chest tighten. For a moment, no one spoke, and Elizabeth smiled. "Hello," she said, her voice gentle. "Thank you for coming." William smiled back. "Thank you for inviting us." She stepped aside to let them in. Her home was small but warm. The living room was filled with books, old photographs, and soft blankets. On the mantel was a picture of her mother, Sarah, when she was young. "I've been nervous all morning," Elizabeth said, pouring tea. "I never imagined this day would come." "We've been nervous too," Kate said kindly. "But we're happy to be here." They sat together in the cozy room, sipping tea and talking slowly. At first, the words were careful, but soon the conversation grew easier. Elizabeth told stories about her childhood, about how her mother never spoke of her past, but sometimes, late at night, she would cry. About how Sarah kept journals, letters, and pictures hidden in a small box under her bed. About how she told Elizabeth, "There are people out there who are part of us, even if we never meet them." Kate listened closely. Every word felt like another puzzle piece falling into place. William asked questions about David and Margaret. Elizabeth shared what little she knew. "Margaret wrote to me once, years ago," she said. "She didn't say much, just that she felt like something was missing in her life. I wish I had answered. I was scared. We all carry fear," William said. "But now we have the chance to build something new." Elizabeth looked at him with tears in her eyes. "I used to watch her mother on TV. I felt drawn to her, though I didn't know why. She seemed ... familiar." "She would have loved you," Kate said softly. "She always saw people's hearts." After a while, Elizabeth stood and walked to a cabinet. She pulled out an old photo album. "These are the only pictures I have of my childhood," she said. "Most of my memories are from my mother's stories." They flipped through the pages. One photo showed a young Sarah holding baby Margaret. Another showed David on a swing. And there, near the back, was a photo of Sarah as a girl standing in front of the Spencer estate. Kate touched the photo gently. "This house ... we've seen pictures of it in royal archives." Elizabeth nodded. She always remembered the red curtains in the drawing room and the blue vase near the window. She said the sun hit it just right in the morning. William felt his throat tighten. These were the same memories his mother never got to hear. By the end of the visit, the sun was setting. The sky outside turned orange and pink. "I know this is a lot," Elizabeth said, "but I'm glad you came." "So are we," Kate replied. William stood and looked around the room one last time. "I feel like I've found a part of my mother I never knew was missing." Elizabeth walked them to the door. Before they left, she gently placed a small envelope in William's hand. "One last letter," she said, "from my mother to her sister's children. She never had the chance to. Send it." William nodded, unable to speak. He simply held the letter close. As they stepped into the cool evening air, Kate whispered, "Do you think Diana knows?" William looked up at the sky. The stars had started to appear. "I think she always knew," he said, and with that, they walked back to the Carhart's full, and one step closer to healing the past. The ride back to London was quiet. William sat in the back seat with the letter still in his hand. He hadn't opened it yet. It felt too sacred. The words inside were written by Sarah Spencer, a sister to Diana's mother, a woman erased from the family story, a woman who still believed her children deserved to know the truth. Kate sat beside him, watching his face. She knew what he was thinking. They had walked into the past and found pieces of love, pain, and silence. And now they were bringing those pieces back to the future. That night, after they returned to Kensington Palace, William sat by the window in his study. The lights of the city sparkled outside. The moon was high, soft, and full. He slowly opened. The envelope inside was a letter written in careful, old-fashioned handwriting. It was dated 1980 to the children of my sister. I do not know your names, or even if you exist. But I write this with the hope that one day you may find it. My name is Sarah Ann Spencer. I am the eldest daughter of the Spencer family. But I was taken from that world before I could understand it. When I was 15, I was sent away. I had a child out of wedlock, a shame the family could not bear. They took my daughter, Margaret. I was told never to speak of her. Later, I had 2 more children. They were also taken from me. I raised none of them. My punishment, they said, was silence. But I have not been silent in my heart. I have watched the news. I saw my little sister, Frances, and her children. I saw Diana. She is full of light. She reminds me of the girl I once was. If you are her children, if you are reading this, you must know something. You are not alone. Your mother has family she never knew. And I loved her from afar with all my heart. Forgive me for not finding you sooner. Forgive me for the silence. I send this letter through time, like a message in a bottle, hoping it finds its way to the right hands. Love always. Sarah S. Spencer. William didn't move for a long time. He stared at the words as tears filled his eyes. His mother had never known. No one had told her. But somewhere out there, her aunt had watched her grow from a distance. Her story had been erased, but her love remained. Kate came into the room and sat beside him. You read it? She asked softly. He nodded. She loved her, even though they never met. Kate put her hand on his. What are we going to do? William looked at the letter again. Then he looked up. We're going to tell the world, but in our own way. The next week, something quiet but powerful happened. No cameras. No press. Just a garden. In the back of Kensington Palace, near the sunken garden where the statue of Princess Diana now stands. A small ceremony was held. William invited Elizabeth. He also invited Margaret's husband, Thomas. And he asked the 2 children of David, the brother who had passed away in Australia, to come. It was the first time. They were all in one place. 5 people. Connected by blood, separated by time. The garden was quiet, filled with white roses, Diana's favorite. A small stone had been placed in the earth. It read, "In memory of Sarah Spencer, and the family once lost, now found." William stood beside the stone and spoke gently. My mother always believed in kindness. She believed in truth. She believed in reaching out. Today, we do that in her name. We honor a family she never knew, but would have loved. Elizabeth stood beside him, holding a small flower from her mother's garden. She placed it by the stone and whispered, "Thank you for finding us." Later, as the group sat on benches, drinking tea and sharing stories, something beautiful began to grow between them. They laughed about simple things, shared memories, old photos, a recipe Margaret once loved, a song David used to sing to his children. No titles, no fame, just people, just family. Kate watched it all with quiet joy. She leaned toward William and whispered, Look, this is healing." He nodded. "Yes, and it's only the beginning." A few months later, a book was published, not a royal biography, not a scandal, just a story. A story of a forgotten sister. A story of silence, love, and truth. William didn't do interviews. He didn't speak on television, but he allowed the book to be published so that Sarah's voice could finally be heard. At the very end of the book was Sarah's letter, printed in full, and one message from William himself. Sometimes the truth comes late, but when it comes, it brings light. This story is not just about the past. It's about love that never dies, and the family we are brave enough to find. The public reacted with warmth. People wrote letters from all over the world. Families began searching their own histories, looking for what had been lost. In the garden of Kensington, where Diana once walked, new flowers bloomed that spring. Roses, lily, and sunflowers. And under those flowers, a truth rested, quiet, gentle, but alive, just like Diana's love, just like Sarah's letter, and just like the family that had finally found its way home.